Instacart shoppers know groceries. They know that you can't make guacamole with rock-hard avocados. They know how to quickly find those peanut butter pretzels you can never find. And they keep you in the know by giving you updates about your order along the way. Let Instacart shoppers help take shopping off your plate so you can get time and energy back for what really matters. Visit instacart.com or download the app to get free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum order $10. Additional terms apply. Instacart. Add life to cart.
Percolate on a particular mix of odd and inspiring news headlines in Wendy's Coffee House. Newsmakers with a penchant for the unknown, unexplained, and unusual share their experiences with UFOs, ghost encounters, near-death experiences, and more for your own unique blend of Wendy's Coffee House Curious. And now, here's Wendy.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for checking me out. The page, wendyscoffeehouse.com, has all the links to the previous shows and content and little news blurbs and things like that. Of course, we just went past Halloween with all the fun paranormal stuff. The thing that a lot of people don't realize is the paranormal also factors into UFO experiences. And so sometimes it just takes one sighting or being next to somebody who's had a sighting, and all of a sudden the paranormal goes off the rate or off the charts, and you're wondering what the heck has just happened because your world turns upside down, okay? So be careful when you stand next to UFO experiencers. They're contagious. Just one of those little things. We're going to get into an interview here. I want my guest is Marian Rudnyk. The book, Intersect, a former NASA astronomer breaks his silence about UFOs. This is a sleeper hit, okay? If you have not read this, if you're not familiar with it, this is like when they did the big expose with Leslie, I'm sorry, now I'm forgetting her name, and I shouldn't, Kane, there it is. I'm trying to, it's like, too many things all at once in my brain, and they got intersected and clogged. Anyway, when they came out with a story about the government actually legitimizing and saying, yes, we do track UFOs. Well, everybody knew that, but they didn't want to admit it. So all of that kind of brought everything to the forefront, and then it was okay. It's still, in some circles, it's a joke, but I think that's fading. So part of that is once I connected with Marian, and I found him through his brother on Twitter, which is one of those little things like, intersect. It's like, whoa, okay, cool, connecting dots. I went on his Facebook page, and recently, this is why I like guys who are scientists, because they pay attention to the stuff that, is like under the radar for everybody else, but it's on the forefront of where we're getting our research and where we're doing the bigger picture scope of what's out there besides us. And there's a Silicon Valley startup, and they're going to try and detect UFOs off the California coast. I saw this. I don't think I shared it, but that's one of those little blurbs that it's out there. All right, we're getting serious about this, and these are the people. Sometimes it isn't a organized government agency. It's somebody on the fringe who says, I can do this, and then the government steps in and says, we'd like to buy your company. That's kind of how that works. Anyway, the search for dark matter depends on ancient shipwrecks. This one was cool, and it's because of the radioactivity. Everything here, and I like that they say even bananas have radioactivity. Whoa! Newsflash. The thing is, when they have that, then it can throw off if you're trying to do any kind of search out there. If it has a little tiny bit of radioactivity, then that's going to throw the search off. Anyway, it factors into how they do their research, and that's just one more little quirk in the machine that makes everything come together and connect. The cool thing also is that when scientists like Marian Rudnyk are on the job, at first, they're going to look for all the things that factor in and rule out the things that scientifically factor out. One of the things that you'll find out was that his brother was a UFO nut, and that was how Marian kind of, yeah, that's the family guy. He's a representative in the UFO community. Until Marian had a sighting. And that's what this book, Intersect, a former NASA astronomer breaks his silence about UFOs, is all about. Did I do you justice, Marian?
Yes, you did. Thank you very much.
Almost.
Nice to be on.
Okay. It
was wonderful.
Well, you're okay. The background, you've worked for NASA, you've worked for Disney, and go ahead and this is something you can toot your horn about, because this wasn't just on the periphery. You're right there in the trenches, and you've got working on the big, like, Armageddon, and telling them they needed to figure out how to get that planet being hit by an asteroid right, because they were not doing it. I thought that was brilliant.
Oh, they were. You know what? Their shots were kind of boring. They were just having asteroids or meteors drop vertically down. I told them, I go, well, if you know the science, about 20% or so of impacts actually happen at a really steep angle, and it'd be much more dramatic if they come tearing through the atmosphere and, you know, go through boom, boom, boom through different buildings and everything. And then there's also a shock wave that precedes a bolide or an impactor as it comes in. I go, so you should have glass and things shattering and blowing out ahead of the object as it streams in, and it'd be make for a much more dramatic shot. But believe it or not, the producers are like, well, this is Armageddon now, mind you. We want hard science. Prove that's correct for us. I'm like, now when you think of the rest of the movie, you're thinking, really? Like, okay. So I actually had to do a scientific presentation, an hour and a half, and explain to them that, you know, and present reports that, yes, meteors do hit at shallow, steep angles, and yes, that this is a realistic scenario, and artistically it would actually make much more sense, be much more dramatic. And then they bought into it. And then I told them, you know, I go, you know, well, while you're at it, you know, if you're destroying New York and everything, you got to have somebody wearing an "I Love New York" T-shirt somewhere in the background or foreground and everything to sort of, you know, make it even more fun. And so, yeah, all that happened. So it was great. And
you got a credit.
I worked at. Pardon me?
Your name was in the credit, wasn't it, or was that the Titanic?
Oh, Titanic. Yeah, I had credit on. That was my first feature film that I worked on. Was on Titanic. Yes.
Okay.
But prior to that, I'd worked extensively at NASA. I had actually started originally working at various, aerospace manufacturing companies, doing precision assembly on Department of Defense and military satellites and space satellites and things like that. And then even moonlighted as a theater manager for a little while. And before I knew it, I was interning at JPL and wound up being an asteroid hunter. And then everything sort of took off from there.
Yeah, and you named some too.
Yes.
The thing is with this is you're kind of in the right place at the right time for all of this, to be able to prove that you had a connection and prove that things around you are happening. And let's get into this. The sighting that you had, you were absolutely stone cold, no such thing as UFOs. As a matter of fact, some of the encounters you had while you were working there with the tourists who came in and the people, we'll get into the Bigfoot guy and actually Stanton Friedman too. You were, at that point, UFOs are hooey. And
yes. And it's funny that you use the term you were at the right place at the right time, because now in hindsight and everything, when I think about sort of the intersection of events on January 1st, 2017, it just feels like I tell my brother, I was at the wrong place at the wrong time. If I could go back in a time machine, I'd go back and talk to myself, Marian, don't do it. Don't go outside. Just sit there, eat your Big Mac. Don't worry about what's outside.
It's good. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Okay.
It's all good.
Fortunately for us, you decided to go outside because things were just kind of quirky. And you showed the parking lot and said it was all, that day it was empty. It was just kind of surreal. All right, so let's describe what, we'll get into the other stuff later, but describe what happened. Why'd you go outside?
Well, it's kind of weird. I think what a lot of people don't realize is that it's not like, it's like you said, I didn't go there with the intent of like, I'm going to have a sighting, at all. And the fact that I even had a camera with me was sort of miraculous and just kind of bizarre, because all this would have been is just simply, a tall tale, of an astronomer that goes outside and says he saw something. But because I'm a classic car guy who likes retro stuff, I had actually, I had gotten the camera as a gift, so I wasn't even very familiar with it yet. And I thought, I'll take the camera out for a test drive, so to speak. And I took my mom to the McDonald's McDiner in Monrovia. And sort of the circumstances all sort of lined up weird that day, because I don't know if your listeners are aware, because I think, January 1st, 2017, wow, the city must have been abuzz with activity and blah, blah, blah. There are people probably all over the place. And actually, nothing could be farther from the truth. As it turns out, there's I don't know what they call them, blue laws or what they call them, the holdover laws or rules from the old days. But here in Southern California, we have the Rose Parade and the Rose Bowl game later in the afternoon, all these January 1st, New Year's Day celebrations. Well, they're not allowed to happen on Sundays.
Yeah.
And so December 31st had been a cold, rainy New Year's Eve, and January 1st, the next day, New Year's Day, fell on a Sunday. So all the celebratory activities were moved to Monday, January 2nd. So January 1st was just dead. It's just cold, rainy, cloudy, overcast, and dead. So I, told my mom, like, hey, let me take you out and everything. She likes going to the McDiner. Let's go there. But probably nobody's going to be there, and that's exactly the way it turned out to be. I go, let me bring this new camera that I got as a Christmas gift, and bring my car, my 67 Pontiac convertible. We'll park it in front of the retro-looking McDiner, and I'll grab some shots, and we'll grab some burgers, and ring the new year in, sort of, our way.
Yeah.
And so we did this. So I include, just to sort of bring this point home in my book and everything, I include all the pictures I shot that day. So people are like, how come there's a bunch of pictures of his car in the back of the book in the appendix? I just wanted people to know that, that's my original intent, was just to get some cool shots of my car in front of the McDiner, not because I was looking for UFOs. It was the furthest thing from my mind, especially considering my nutty brother.
Okay, hold on.
My nutty brother.
Let's take a break. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and find out more about the nutty brother and the UFOs. All right? It's Intersect by Marian Rudnyk. A former NASA astronomer breaks his silence about UFOs in a big way. Wendy's Coffee House, KCMO Talk Radio. Wendy's Coffee House, KCMO Talk Radio. Intersect, former NASA astronomer breaks his silence about UFOs. Marian Rudnyk. And this is legit. Not only did he break his silence, he found out the military is really interested in it, and so the MIB shows up. But first, let's go back to that crazy UFO nut brother, because that's how I found him on Twitter. It's like, my brother has a book. Intersect, you got to go read it. I'm like, well, sure, yay. So I'm connecting, going, yay, yee-haw. And finding out that, well, you were the sensible one, okay? Until the harmonic convergence, guilt by association, ET's tracked you down and said, okay, big boy. Yeah, how serious are you? And that had to rock your world, because you're, okay, you explain it.
Very, very much, actually. And as a matter of fact, when and I'll get into the sighting in just a second, just wanted to say that I sat on this for several weeks without even reporting it, except to my brother and everything, because I just didn't want to even believe what I kept looking at the videos and the pictures, and I can't believe I saw this kind of a thing. But as far as the sighting goes, it was I saw something drop out of the clouds while we were sitting eating. And my first thought was, it's probably just some sort of practice for some sort of aerial event that's going to happen tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, that's odd. I don't understand. Today's dead. There shouldn't be anything in the sky, really. And the curiosity got the best of me. Or curiosity killed the cat. In this case, the curiosity killed the astronomer. Because I decided to go. I told him, you know what, hang out here and everything. I'm going to go outside and just take a quick peek. So I went outside and I looked, and it was just like these 4 discs coming out of the sky, and I just stood there transfixed. And then I think, it felt like a long time, but I think it was probably only seconds. But you know how time sort of dilates and does weird things when you're really caught up in the moment. And it just seemed like forever, like I was staring at them. Then all of a sudden, it just snapped to me, what am I doing? I got a camera in my pocket.
Yes.
So I took the camera out, and I started shooting. The camera had a really, really bad lag time. It's like you push the button, and it was like 10 to 15 seconds between shots while it processed the picture. And I'm like, oh, are you kidding me? So, but on the good side, it gave me a chance to actually observe them instead of having my face just in the screen.
Right.
And I could see I don't know how to explain it. There's just a sense that there was a problem. Like you could just feel something wasn't right, and the 4th disc was struggling, and it was sinking lower, and it was just something was wrong with it. Mm-hmm. And I could see what looked like splotches on it and everything, and those showed up on the pictures as sort of these fuzzy blotches. And I didn't know what to make of it, except the feeling was like it's crippled, it's hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird to think like a machine is hurt, but it was like that's what it felt like. Like it felt like it's hurt. And then after taking a couple pictures, I flipped to video mode, and at that, because the discs were at their closest point to me at this point, and the camera went nuts. All these tracking squares appeared and were like dancing all over the screen. I'm like, what the? So I tried to zoom in, zoom out to try to get rid of them, and they were just obscuring what I was seeing. I'm like, okay. So I filmed for maybe 30 seconds or so, and I'm going back to get one more shot. And so I flipped back real quick to picture mode and took pictures, and then I turned away for a second and everything because I gotta go to get like one of the employees or my mom to go out here and take a look at this. And all I did is turn around. When I turned back around, they're just gone.
Yes.
Just gone. I'm like, where could they be? So I just looked and looked. They're just gone.
Mm-hmm.
They're just nowhere to be found at all. So I rushed back inside, told everybody whatever, and then, we're all looking outside, and they were just gone. And then I didn't even tell my brother right away. I sat on this for a number of days. When I finally told him, he came right over, and we talked, and we looked, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what to think. It just was so out of my wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's just like, you can't talk to anybody, you can't tell anybody yet. When he figured this out, people like Stanton Friedman, I'm like, Stanton Friedman, that rings a bell. He's all, yeah, you remember you ran into him at JPL? I'm like, oh yeah, the guy who was like the bulldog and my, this and demanding all this. I'm like, he's all, yeah, well, Stanton Friedman's going to be your new friend. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, he's all, wait on this.
Yes.
But what I did is I didn't wait. I went ahead and dropped an email to Stanton Friedman, and in the middle of the night, and in the morning, literally several hours later, he responded. A couple of hours after that, we were on the phone, and we just talked for hours. He was just the coolest guy, really, really hit it off. We had a lot in common. He was a nuclear physicist who worked with the Air Force and done a lot of engineering and physics and things like that. And it was awesome. And he was like, I told him and everything. I go, I had ran into you. I go, were in my facility at JPL. He's like, oh, yeah, I remember being there. And I'm like, yeah. I go, he's like, oh, I'm so sorry and everything. I probably, bulldozed all over you. I was like, all over. Like, yeah, you were.
Yeah, you were.
I go, I won't use remind you of the terms I called you. I go, he's all, I can imagine and everything, but.
Yeah, but he spoke your language. He spoke your language.
Yeah, and we hit it off. And when I told my brother later on, he's all, you realize that Stanton Friedman is known to be a very abrasive character. I'm like, no, he's not. I go, he's a really cool guy.
Yeah.
He's all, so you went from being a bulldog to a really cool guy? I'm like, yeah. I go, and I even told him what happened, and we both laughed about it, and then I stayed in touch with him over the course of all of these things as this story unfolded.
Yes. Yeah.
And he put me in touch with Dr. Bob Wood because there's a big military angle to all of this. Because by the end of the month, things were just sort of escalating because I had a friend who I didn't know, but that this friend's sister was married to somebody in Space Command. Mm-hmm. And you can read about it in the book and everything. It's pretty extensive what happened. But basically, I wound up on FaceTime with Space Command. And the guy just grilled me. And he demanded to see what I had. And I turned the phone around, showed him on my laptop what I had. And he was like, yep, those suckers are real, and you're not going to talk about it. Oh. And I'm like, well, I didn't sign anything. So they demanded that I hand over all the data. I gave them pictures, but I didn't want to give them the video, and they demanded the video. For some reason, the video, which I thought wasn't that impressive because you just see fuzzy dots moving, and they were kind of blinking because of the focus problem that the camera was all of a sudden hit with this weird focus problem, and they wanted that really, really bad. And I know that the video corroborates a lot of things because, you look at that, my first thing was like, these are some sort of balloons or some sort of, I don't know what, drones. I'm like, well, no, there's no sounds. No, they're not balloons. They're actually flying perpendicular. It was gusty winds going west to east, from east to west, and they would have blown them apart. These were flying in formation in a purposeful way. So
yes.
It was very, very, I think the video has a lot of things that they could corroborate with.
Okay, hang on. All right, my guest, Marian Rudnyk, former NASA astronomer. Okay, the deal is that the MIB, and in one case MIT, Man in Pink, step in, and that's when things get really weird. But there might have been a precursor because you also, during your NASA time, found this wonderful little film collection of shots that are important and might have been on the radar in some way, shape, or form because of that. Okay, we don't know yet, but we're going to find out more. So in the meantime, we forgot about the guy who was all about Bigfoot. He's in there too. That's why you've got to read the book. Intersect. We do not have time for all of this. We're going to also get into why his dad, Marian's dad, is like absolutely crucial in this story because he knows how to deal with men in black, women in black, people in black. Weird, odd, muscle. Wendy's Coffee House, KCMO Talk Radio. Wendy's Coffee House, KCMO Talk Radio. Okay, I will put the links to the stuff we talk about on the blog site, all right? So if you miss anything, we'll do that. But you can also just go right on Amazon, get the book, Intersect, a former NASA astronomer breaks his silence about UFOs. My guest, Marian Rudnyk. And the thing is, when you read the background, he has, this isn't just some newbie, and he has a science background. So what he did, he worked at NASA at observatories, discovered asteroids, went on mission flight teams to Neptune and Venus. UFOs did not factor in. Okay, so those of us who say, yes, UFOs are there, we've seen them, we know this happens, we've had encounters. This is a guy who said, BS. No way, no how. Well, until January of 2017. Then his whole world shattered. And his brother said, welcome to the club. There you go. So that's a new setup. How's that?
Yeah, that's very accurate. And one of the things that because there have been in the book and everything, I talk about it near the in the middle and the end of the book because this whole thing with MIBs, or I just call them MIBs. Yeah. And then I call them pseudo-affectionately MIB goons, and there's a reason for that. Mm-hmm. Because of the intimidation tactics. But my brother told me that these people would be worried because, I actually had other things I started seeing, and they're in the book, and they'll be detailed much more in the sequel to the book, because it's the book focuses mostly on 2017 because so much happened, and 2018 and 2019 were just like beyond crazy game changer stuff where I started seeing a lot more stuff, and I had pictures and videos and my brother's like, how, I think I know how you're getting these pictures. And he's all, let me take a guess. You sense when something's going to happen and you go outside. I'm like, yes. Yeah, how did you know? Yes. I'm like, I get this driving urge, like something like I hear a helicopter, but you hear helicopters all the time. And I'm like, no, this is different. And I go racing outside and I start filming it, and then ultimately I'll see that, like for example, one of the shots in the book, there's two Black Hawk helicopters, and there's like a dark orb following them. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, these MIB people and all that, they don't want you going outside. They don't want you filming and everything, and they're going to, try to squash you on that. And the thing that started happening is my introduction to the MIBs was a Black Hawk helicopter dive bombing my car and, doing circles and everything and scaring the heck out of my mom and me, just sort of standing my ground and photographing them. And when I photographed, I started, taking pictures. I could see the pilots were just pissed. They were pissed.
Yeah, no camera.
Yeah, no cameras. And instead, what I did is I point to the camera, at the camera, and then at them, like, I'm filming you.
Yeah,
I'm filming you.
Smile. I want to, real quick, Sacred Corridors. I did the interview with Irina McCammon-Scott. She had that same thing happen after she took pictures, asked permission later and at Area 51. And she said that her neighbors are out and they're watching this military jet dive bomb her house. She's like, what? And there's video of it. They've got it videoed. That's the thing about you. People talk about we hear about the MIBs, MIBs as you call them, but you've got pictures.
My friends are so funny and everything. People are so dismissive in a funny way because some of the ones who witness this are like, so what did you do wrong? And we don't know you now. I'm like, oh, thanks a lot.
Yeah, they all scatter. Well, that's kind of what they did at NASA when the tour groups went through and they said your name and you're like, uh-oh. And all your people who were supposed to support you found exits very fast.
Yes.
Here, Marian will handle
it.
So
the MIB stuff was just, they wound up at in the book talks about it, I went to a Voyager anniversary event that I was invited to because it was part of the Voyager team.
Yes.
And they showed up in force there to intimidate me. There was one that parked outside the house. My mom's just like, Marian, quick. I'm like, there's this Air Force lady, and you could just tell it was Air Force written all over, and it had like a $10,000 photo rig shooting inside of to the inside of our house from literally, across the street from us, like maybe 20, 30 feet
Subtle.
through the windows and stuff. And I got pictures and video of her, and I was able to identify her as definitely being military. But I'm not, for obvious reasons, going to post her face.
No,
and
that's good.
But that's how good I got.
That's good.
As far as proof of these MIBs.
Well, and then you also, so you go into this and you figure out what it's about, and there's a new term rather than UFO. There's a new term that you're throwing out that said this is probably what it's about. That would be the NTAC?
NTAC, yeah. I call them NTACs, and that's because I think UFO is a great term for when you don't know, and NTAC is more accurate when you actually know that it's a non-terrestrial aerospace craft.
Okay.
So you know that it's not one of ours. And the point was driven home to me by a friend of mine who is in the DoD world, because I go, this thing with this sighting. I finally met with this person, and they are just adamant about the fact that, you don't talk and this and that. I go, I'm sorry. I go, bad things are happening to my finances. My computers aren't, I can't get internet connections. I'm having problems with phones, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. My smartphone has become basically a glass brick and non-usable. And so I go, no, I am going to talk. And he's all, well, I go, but my question is, is it ours or is it, from out there? And he's just like, well, think about it this way. You saw it on January 1st, and it made Space Command's radar a couple of weeks later. When you handed over the last of the data, the next day F-18s arrived, and were here for a week, circling, looking through the hills. I think they were looking for that fourth disc that was crippled that they suspected it might have gone down. And he drove the point home. He's all, if it was ours, we would have already known that it had gone down, and there would be nothing to look for, and this wouldn't have been news to them. The fact that they arrived in force looking for something shows you that it's not theirs. It's not ours. In other words, not the military's.
Okay.
So I'm like, that's a good point.
Doing some of this, too, is that if there's a history of somebody who's had contact and who, UFOs or whatever happen to hang around, sometimes the MIB shows up. And it's kind of unclear whether they're trying to keep people from talking or if they're trying to figure out what's going on, so they just hang out with the intention of looking like they're harassing you with the hope that something may show up and they're in proximity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, some of it is just it is intimidation tactics, and they know, they know where I go, and I know people like, well, maybe you're just being paranoid about people following you and all that. I challenge people with this little challenge that I did, and I told my brother this, and he's like, oh, that's a good idea. I go, when you drive to the store from your house, let's say you drive 1 mile to the store and back, count how many police cars you come across. I go, it's a really simple little thing. And I would be like, we're talking 6 to 10 police cars, sometimes repeats. So, you drive, and then there's one following you, then it leaves, and another one's following you, then they switch place. They think they don't notice, or maybe they do know. But, or dark cars, they're just following you, tailgating you. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's just crazy. And at one point, it finally was sort of in my face. A cousin of mine had come, who lives far away, came by visit. I said, let's go to the McDiner. I got to tell you about everything that's been going on with me, blah, 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 blah. I go, that would be the place to go because this is where everything started. So we went there for lunch, and I go, I wouldn't be, he's also, or what are these people going to be, maybe here? I go, maybe. I go, they surveil me a lot and everything. There are times when it's in my face and times when you never know. And in the booth next to us was this man wearing a pink Hawaiian shirt. And but then when he sat down, he put down this weird-looking iPhone, and he motioned with his arm outstretched, like he's tapping it, like it's recording us. I'm like, okay, we've been had. He said, what? Seriously? I go, I'm going to try and take a picture of him. And I tried to take pictures of him. When I moved my camera up, he would turn away. When I put the camera down, he turned again, so he was sort of half facing us, sort of sitting sideways in his bench seat. And I go, okay, you know what? Let's test the waters. I go, because at this point I already had enough on all of this, and I already had the whole MIB goons thing established in my head because of all the things that they had done that you read about in the book.
Yeah.
I go, you know what? Watch. Let's see if this guy will, say something. And I told him in a sort of a loud voice, I go, well, UFOs are real. And then I hesitated, and then I go, and you know what? MIBs, MIBs are goons.
Uh-oh.
That guy, just his face turned red.
Ooh.
He turned around and, excuse my language, and he said, they screamed, "That's bullshit." And then it's like he realized that he caught himself. We're like, whoa, we're just staring at him. He took off.
Uh-oh. I wonder if he's still employed, because that's like a...
Yes.
He gave himself up.
That's what my friend said. I go, he broke protocol.
Yeah,
He reacted, and he shouldn't have. But I think maybe we caught him off guard, and I doubt they'll make that slip again.
No, he's a newbie. Okay, hold on. We're going to come back. We're going to come back. Take a quick break.
Okay.
All right. And this is Intersect, the book. You've got to read the rest of it because we're just glossing over the high points here. My guest has been there, done that. He knows that UFOs are real. Okay, and he happens to be a former NASA astronomer, which might help add a little bit of credence to that knowing. Wendy's Coffee House, KCMO Talk Radio. Wendy's Coffee House, KCMO Talk Radio. Okay, so yeah, he's a former NASA astronomer, but he's done all sorts of stuff. He's got credit, at least one, in a major motion picture. What was it, Titanic? He was also telling them how the astronauts' comets, whatever they were, the big destructo things, were supposed to hit the planet with Armageddon, and he had to do an hour and a half, you heard him, presentation to say, okay, this is the way it works. He couldn't just go show them that little piece of comet flying there over in Russia where they've got the whole thing coming in, and it's coming in at a nice long angle, and you see it hit.
Yep.
You could have used that.
Yeah, well, if it had happened then, but unfortunately Armageddon was filmed before that event.
Oh,
so
darn, okay.
It's just one of those things. It didn't intersect my path yet.
Oh, fine. All right, so the deal is, your dad... Go ahead.
Yes, you mentioned my dad. My dad played a big part in all of this because I know with my brother, and this kind of flashes back to my brother, had gone through a lot with the whole MIB thing and the helicopters and all that. And I had always just said, Matt, you're out there, you're nuts. I go, you're seeing things, you're delusional.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, and you don't have pictures to back it up or anything. I go, if anything like that happened to me, I'd have pictures.
Oh,
lo and behold, here I am now. Thing is, the reason I could stand my ground and do all of this and maintain some semblance of clarity in the middle of what seems like insanity when a multi-ton helicopter is barreling down on you doing circles, trying to intimidate you, is because of my dad. He had worked for, and people are going to soak this up, he worked for the Counterintelligence Corps, the CIC, during World War II. He had escaped Auschwitz and escaped a Nazi work camp and had found himself on the run, but he knew 5 languages fluently. One of them was English. And he ran across an American Army unit who very quickly recruited him to work in the CIC and behind the lines. And by the end of the war, he then worked for UNRWA, United Nations Relief Organization, and URA, I think another one of those. But what the United Nations people didn't know is he was still CIC. He was working secretly as a spy to ferret out Russian moles and Nazi people who were trying to escape and things like that. Mm-hmm. So he was working undercover doing that kind of work, and the United Nations didn't even know. And he, even to the end of his days, he's no longer with us, was visited, had an annual security visit from people with, your sort of dressed in black crowd who would come here and have a little quote-unquote chat with him to make sure that he still wasn't talking about his experiences. And this is, mind you, World War II. But then he also worked on the Apollo project for the communication systems for the lunar module, so which obviously is important. And then later on the shuttle on some engineering recording systems that were on the SRBs, which is the side boosters. They're called Mars recorders, and he was part of that. And Mars is an acronym. It's not in reference to the planet, but an acronym. But anyway, so he got annual visits all the time, and he talked a lot about his experiences and how he managed to do things. And part of his thing, like even with Auschwitz, he literally was able to walk out of the camp by pretending that he was Gestapo.
Oh.
He had come in on the trains in the middle of the night. They hadn't had time to strip the people down yet. The Nazis hadn't, and all that. Mm-hmm. And long story short, basically, he bummed a cigarette off of somebody. Put his collar up on his long jacket that he had and everything. So, and got a fedora from somebody and everything, and literally walked out. And because he spoke German fluently as well as the other languages, he threatened the guards with this and this and this and blah 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 blah. He said he was going to take a walk and was going to put them on report for this and this and this. And then this minute he got into the forest, he dropped all the clothes and took off and was able to escape. So, but that kind of daring, sort of cold, calm, collect kind of thing is what he tried to instill in me, that in the face of extraordinary circumstances, you can't buckle, you can't bend, you have to sort of stand your ground clear-eyed and do what you got to do and everything, and don't let things, throw you off. And he sort of instilled that in me big time all through my childhood and all that, with all the stories of the war and things that he went through during World War II. And that stayed with me. So when I was confronted with the MIBs, and you read in the book the Voyager event, the anniversary event that I attended, that was my first real face-to-face encounter. It was a 3-on-1 encounter, and I just flashed back to what my dad taught me. And I go, okay, I got to suck this up. I got to play this out, and I just got to really just be just really sort of brazen about how I deal with this, and not show any fear, not show anything. And I'll let the audience have fun reading the story. I don't want to be a spoiler.
That's worth it. That's worth it. That was a serious encounter. That was a serious encounter.
And then a lot of this goes back to the fact they didn't want me talking about things like, also that's in the book, people can read about it, it's called the Gemini affair. I stumbled upon hidden films, the astronaut films, under the floor at JPL. And a MIB was dispatched from Johnson Space Center to pick this stuff up. And there were UFO pictures that had been cut out of those films. So, again, your audience can, I know we're short on time, can have fun reading about all of that. And there were lots of people that were there that witnessed all of that went through the films with me. We were shocked. But that happened in the evening. And the next morning, they were there, and early in the morning, and they picked it up. No paperwork, just threats, and hand over the film.
And give it. Okay, so the next book is coming out when? Because this is to be continued.
Hopefully sometime in December, and everything in time for the holidays is what I'm shooting for. Things continue to happen, but I'm trying to just sort of have to, I guess, cut things off and just stop the book where it will.
Okay.
But it'll cover the events of 2018 and 2019 and the things that have been happening here since then, because there have been it's like Monrovia is like this sporadic, it happens in bursts, air show where you see ospreys, venoms, vipers, F-18s, Hawkeye intel planes, E-11A Bacons and Blackhawks flying in formations and everything, all through these hills, like they're still looking for something.
You bet.
And a lot of times, this is all associated with UFO activity, or what people call UAPs or whatever. So,
we got to talk to you again. Marian, we got to talk to you again. We got say for people right now, they get the book on Amazon, right? Anything else? What do you want to add?
Rudnyk.com for more stuff and everything. I'll try to drop more pictures there by way as the second book comes out. There'll be a lot more stuff there. And then Twitter and Facebook, just facebook.com, twitter.com/Marian Rudnyk. That easy.
Okay, so you did your brother good by doing exactly what you said. Next time you see one, take pictures.
I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry I doubted you.
That's okay. That's what family's for, okay?
Yeah.
You got your back.
Yes.
It's like, okay, here we go, and you're in it together. Thank you so much for doing what you're doing, and just keep your cool.
Thank you, Wendy.
Keep your cool. Again, the book, Intersect, a former NASA astronomer breaks his silence about UFOs. Marian Rudnyk, you've got to read it because there's so much in there we didn't have time to get into, but that MIB stuff is serious. And to being able to know that that's what's happening and understand there's a reason for it. And there's also a reason for going public, because that's how we learn and that's how we identify some of this other stuff that's under the radar and you really don't pay attention to until you pass 6 police cars on the way to the grocery store and it's only like a mile and a half. Okay. Well, I live down the street from a police station, so maybe that doesn't count. Marian, thank you. Thank you. Wendy'sCoffeehouse.com. Check out the blog. I'll put the links there. In the meantime, whatever you're doing, stay curious and look up. Look up. That's what we don't do. Too many times we're looking down at the cell phone at the ground or something, a flashy car, classic. Okay, look up. See ya.
Instacart shoppers know groceries. They know that you can't make guacamole with rock-hard avocados. They know how to quickly find those peanut butter pretzels you can never find. And they keep you in the know by giving you updates about your order along the way. Let Instacart shoppers help take shopping off your plate so you can get time and energy back for what really matters. Visit instacart.com or download the app to get free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum order $10. Additional terms apply. Instacart. Add life to cart.
We're an Instacart family.
Oh my goodness, we saved so much time with same-day grocery delivery.
So we joined Instacart Plus.
And now we're saving more money.
We get unlimited free delivery on orders over $35,
5% credit back on pickup,
and a family account to shop together.
Did you know members save $460 a year when they order at least once a week?
I do now. See how much you'll save. Visit instacartplus.com for 2 weeks free. Average savings exclude membership fee. Individual savings may vary. Credit back excludes alcohol. Paid membership auto renews. Additional terms apply.